Hello and welcome back to Heather's Greenhouse. So today is July 1st and tomorrow it is supposed to rain. So now is the perfect time to start thinking about what I want to plant for July. So I'm in Zone 8, I'm in the Midlands of South Carolina. So what can I plant in July? I do want to point out that I mentioned it's going to rain tomorrow because I am like the seed fairy before a thunderstorm or a good rain. I will be out in the garden planting seeds, dropping wildflower seeds, succession planting. I will be doing all that when the rain starts as long as I can, unless we get a downpour, and then I will go inside. But let me tell you, there's no better time, in my opinion, to plant seeds or succession plant than right before a rainstorm. So it is hot, and I'm on my lunch break from work, so I'm going to go sit in the shade to talk about what I'm going to be planting in the rain tomorrow. Okay, so we are in the shade here. So vegetables to plant in July in Zone 8. Beans. Bush beans and pole beans both thrive in the warm soil and are great for succession planting right now. Cucumbers, direct sow cucumber seeds for a late summer harvest. So if you're like me, you've gotten a couple of cucumbers off your cucumber vines already, but those cucumber vines are going to start to decline. Go ahead and put out your next succession of cucumber seeds now so that you can continue to have cucumbers until the fall. Summer squash and zucchini do well in warm weather. I just mentioned in a previous video that my zucchini squash got killed by vine borer, and that's fine. Just succession plant. I'll be out here tomorrow like the seed fairy, putting zucchini and squash seeds out in the garden. Tomatoes. So if your tomatoes are like mine, again, you've gotten some harvest off of them, but they are starting to decline from the heat. Maybe they're starting to get powdery mildew. Maybe the insects are just ridiculous like they are here. Whatever the reason, succession plant. Go ahead and put you some more tomato seeds out now so that in the fall you'll be able to enjoy tomatoes. Okra. Okra loves heat. I showed my 4 little small okra saplings. Sorry, that's for trees. Seedlings. I showed you my 4 little okra seedlings the other day. They were tiny because it had not been hot enough for them to really start growing. Now that it's hot, they are going to take off. If you don't have okra in your garden, now's a great time to add okra. Sweet corn. So I don't grow corn. The reason why is because corn needs at least a 4 foot by 4 foot block because they have to pollinate each other. And that's a lot of space. And corn is very cheap at the grocery store, and you can get organic corn really cheap at my grocery store. So I don't grow corn just because of how much space it takes. But if you like fresh corn, now's a great time to throw some corn out. And again, you want to make sure you have a minimum of a 4 foot by 4 foot road area of corn so that they can cross-pollinate. Otherwise, you're going to get about half of your corn kernels will fill out and grow. The rest of it's going to be just desiccated and dry. And you don't want that. You want a full head of corn. So, make sure you plant corn the correct way and make sure that they're able to cross-pollinate when the wind blows. Eggplant. I don't grow eggplant because I don't like eggplant. I do like eggplant in like baba ganoush and eggplant lasagna, but we don't really cook that a lot. We don't eat that a lot, so I don't grow eggplant anymore. I used to grow eggplant and it ended up in the compost bin every time, so I don't grow it anymore. But if you like eggplant, now is a great time to get some eggplant in the garden. Some other vegetables you can think of, beets, carrots, Swiss chard, radishes can all be planted for fall harvest. They will love germinating in the heat, but then they'll love growing and producing in the cool in the fall. So July is a great time to get a lot of this stuff started in your garden. Some flowers that are great to put out now. because honestly, if you're going to have a vegetable garden, you're going to want to grow flowers alongside them because they draw in the pollinators. I don't have, pollination issues because I have so many flowers, but before I started growing flowers, I would have low pollination and sometimes I would have to hand pollinate. So if you've got a vegetable garden, you're going to want to grow some flowers. Great flowers to plant now. Zinnias. Oh my goodness, y'all. Zinnias are one of my favorite flowers to cut and bring inside. They are so great in a vase. They're vibrant. They come in so many different colors. They are tough. They don't mind the heat. Marigolds are also good to plant this time of year. Marigolds are good to help deter pests because of the smell. I think French marigolds are the ones that are really good to companion plant with your tomato plants. Cosmos. Cosmos flowers are heat tolerant and can be succession sown throughout the summer for continuous blooms. Another one that I like is celosia. So celosia has actually self-seeded in my garden, and I love it. It's beautiful. It brings in pollinators. It is, bold color. I think mine's like a bright magenta. So it's a nice pop of color in your garden. You can put in all kinds of things now. One of the things you can look at is what's declining in your garden. Because there are a lot of things, y'all, plants have phases of life just like people do. There are some plants that cannot handle the heat and they're going to die. Bachelor buttons, for example. I plant bachelor buttons in the spring and I plant bachelor buttons in the fall because during the summer they die. Nasturtiums. I saw a post recently in a gardening group that I was in where the person was just totally shocked. They didn't understand why their nasturtiums were dying. They flowered, they were gorgeous, and then they died. Well, nasturtiums can't handle the heat either, so that's another great thing. Plant it now, let it, come up, and then it'll start to flower in the fall when it starts to cool off. Yarrow is great. Yarrow is good to plant now. It's a lovely addition to beds. And something else to think about in the middle of the heat, herbs. A lot of herbs are Mediterranean. They don't mind the heat. They don't like, wet feet. They're pretty easy. Rosemary here, as a friend of mine said, rosemary will grow to the size of a VW bug. It will get huge here. You can grow rosemary and just constantly just, take cuttings off of it. I love rosemary on any type of poultry. I also love rosemary on potatoes. I will take a potato and I will wash it well, cover it in olive oil, and then chop up rosemary and put it on it and put the potatoes in the oven to cook 20-25 minutes, whatever it takes based on the size of your potato. And it is so good. So let me show you a couple of things that we're talking about in the garden. So this tomato is a great example. Tomatoes do not like the heat. They hate being dry, but they can't stand wet feet either, so you have to have a moist, well-draining soil for tomatoes. I do not try to keep my tomato plants alive here. I just know that they're going to grow. I'll get a harvest and then they're going to die. And then I succession plant my tomatoes. So let me show you an example of a volunteer tomato. So let's go out the fence here. I saw this morning. So this area has my rain barrel and 2 compost bins. And look right there. That is a volunteer tomato growing up right here. I'm sure it came from the compost bin. So you know what? If that volunteer tomato is coming up now, now's a good time to plant tomatoes. My rosemary. That rosemary bush is huge. I love having it planted right here by the compost because it prevents a lot of the pests because they don't like the smell. Sunflowers. If you want sunflowers all season long, you need to succession plant. I put 2 or 3 seeds in about every other week. And I do that for the entire spring, summer. And that way I have sunflower seeds. And I have beautiful sunflowers all summer long. All right, so we've got some sunflowers. Talked about zinnias. Here's some zinnia. So here's a zinnia, and here's a zinnia. Now's a great time to plant more. Here's some cosmos. Now's a great time to plant some more cosmos. Snapdragons. So snapdragons are another one. They like it cool. So you can plant seeds now, germinate, and then by the time fall gets here, they will be ready to flower for you. And here's an example of the marigold. Again, marigolds are great to plant right now. This bee is loving this marigold. Now, I like the smell of marigolds, so I like to cut marigolds and bring them inside the house. A lot of people don't like the smell of marigolds, but the smell honestly is what keeps the pest away. So here's an example of thyme. So I don't know if you can see, but that thyme basically has fallen over and most of its roots are exposed, and it is still alive. Matter of fact, it's flowering. Here's a great example of a nasturtium. Again, they just cannot handle this heat. So succession plant your nasturtium. That way you'll get beautiful flowers in the fall. And here's my okra. Y'all, that okra loves the heat. Once it rains tomorrow, it's probably gonna grow a foot in a day. Okra grows very quick once it gets nice and warm and it gets a good rain shower. Now, something that does not like the heat and cannot stand being dry is basil. So if you're gonna grow basil, you need to put it somewhere where it's cool and can stay watered well. You probably want to water that every day, at least during the hot periods. Y'all, even my honeysuckle has stopped flowering because it's too hot. You know when honeysuckle starts dropping flowers that it's just too dang hot. And again, my tomato jungle. Now is a great time to succession plant. If you did not start plants, if you did not start tomato seeds inside or in your grow area, that's okay. You don't have to have starts already. A great thing to do with tomatoes, so you see this? That right there, that's growing between the main stalk and a leaf. That right there, just pop it out. You could put it in water and it'll root, or if you're going to keep it wet, you can just put it in the soil, water it in, and that will root, and you will have a full tomato plant just from that, and it's free. So the Love Lives Bleeding Amaranth. Amaranth is another one of them. Amaranth is a great trap crop in that it will attract the insects, and you'll see that there's always insect leaf damage on an amaranth. But man, that is just beautiful enough, it's worth it. And I think that's called Love Lies Bleeding Amaranth. I don't know for sure, but I think that's what it's called. But it's another one, great time to succession plant. Put some seeds out. Again, I do it when it rains. All right, until next time, happy gardening and enjoy July.